The ships came on a Tuesday morning. Taiho remembered it clearly because his daughter had asked him to make breakfast that day. He was frying eggs when the sky turned dark. Not dark like clouds. Dark like something huge was blocking the sun. Within 6 hours, every major city on Earth received the same message. Surrender or die. The message came in every human language. The aliens had studied them for years before arriving. They knew everything about humanity. Or at least they thought they did. The world governments held emergency meetings. Some wanted to fight. Others wanted to negotiate. But when the aliens destroyed Tokyo in 15 seconds as a demonstration of power, the debate ended quickly. Earth surrendered. The Valoran Dominion landed their troops the next day. They were tall creatures with hard shells covering their bodies like armor. Their eyes were black and showed no emotion. Their leader, Prefect Goroth, stood before the cameras and announced that humanity was now property of the Dominion. Humans would work. Humans would obey. Humans would be silent. 3 years passed. Taiho sat in the darkness of an old subway tunnel beneath. Seoul. The trains had stopped running long ago. The aliens used different transportation. But the tunnels remained forgotten and ignored. That made them perfect. Around him sat 12 people. Some were soldiers like him. Others were scientists, teachers, factory workers. They came from different lives, but they shared one thing. They had not accepted defeat, Report Taiho said quietly. A young woman named Yuna spoke first. She had worked as a physicist before the invasion. Now she worked in an alien research facility, cleaning floors and emptying trash. The aliens never noticed that she memorized everything she saw. I found their shield technology blueprints, she said. They store everything on crystal drives. I copied the data last night. Right. Taiho nodded. This was good news. Very good news. A man named Minho went next. He had been a lieutenant in the army. Now he drove supply trucks for the aliens. They trusted him because he always smiled and never complained. They did not know that he photographed every route, every checkpoint, every patrol schedule. The orbital defense grid has a gap, Minho said. Every night between 3 and 4 a.m., Sector 7 goes into maintenance mode. For 1 hour, nothing watches the Pacific Ocean. Taiho filed this information away in his mind. He never wrote anything down. None of them did. Paper could be found. Computers could be hacked. But memories were safe. The last to speak was Sujin. Before the invasion, she had been a diplomat. She spoke 6 languages and understood how power worked. The aliens had made her a translator because she seemed so eager to help them. She attended their meetings. She heard their secrets. And every night, she passed those secrets to Taiho. Prefect Goroth is frustrated, Sujin said. He expected resistance. He expected humans to fight back. Instead, we just work and stay quiet. It confuses him, good Taiho said. Let him stay confused. Above ground, the world looked defeated. Humans walked with their heads down. They spoke in soft voices. They followed every rule. When alien soldiers passed, humans stepped aside and bowed. The aliens laughed at this. They called humans weak. They called them broken. They did not understand. In Japan, a fisherman named Dasak spent his nights building communication devices from stolen parts. He hid them inside fish and shipped them to contacts in 12 countries. The aliens never searched fish. They found the smell disgusting. In Germany, a Korean engineer named Jiwoo worked in an alien weapons factory. Every day, she made tiny changes to the manufacturing process. The weapons still worked, but they would fail after exactly 100 uses. No one noticed because no alien had fired a weapon 100 times yet. But they would. In Brazil, a doctor named Yunji treated sick aliens with great care and kindness. They loved her. They trusted her. They did not know that she was mapping their biology, learning their weaknesses, finding the spots where a single needle could kill. Across the world, humans smiled and obeyed during the day. At night, they worked in shadows. The aliens had made one terrible mistake. They had studied human history. They had seen the wars, the violence, the anger. They expected humans to fight with guns and bombs and fury. They prepared for that kind of war. But humans were smarter than that. They knew they could not win a direct battle. Alien technology was too advanced. Alien ships were too powerful. So they chose a different path. They chose patience. Taiho ended the meeting and watched his people disappear into the tunnels. Each one would return to their normal life. Each one would smile at their alien masters. Each one would wait. He thought about his daughter. She was 15 now. She attended an alien school where they taught her that humanity was inferior. She came home every day and told him what she learned. Then she helped him encode messages to resistance cells in 30 countries. The aliens thought they had broken humanity. They wrote reports saying the occupation was a success. They congratulated themselves on conquering a planet without real resistance. They never asked themselves the important question: why had humans given up so icily? Humans were the species that fought wars for centuries. Humans were the species that never stopped struggling. Humans had survived ice ages, plagues, and disasters that should have destroyed them. And now they simply surrendered? Prefect Gorath should have wondered about this. He should have been suspicious. But he was too proud. He believed what he wanted to believe. He thought humans were weak because they looked weak. He did not see the messages passing between hidden cells every night. He did not see the stolen technology being assembled in underground factories. He did not see the maps being drawn, the plans being made, the weapons being hidden. He did not see the war that had already begun. Taiho walked home through empty streets. An alien patrol passed him, and he bowed like a good human. The soldiers ignored him. He was just another defeated creature, not worth their attention. He smiled to himself and kept walking. The galaxy had conquered many species. The Valoran Dominion had ruled for 10,000 years. They knew how to break civilizations. They knew how to crush hope, but they had never met humans before. They did not know that humans were patient. They did not know that humans could plan for years, for decades, for generations. They did not know that the quietest humans were often the most dangerous. In the darkness of Earth, a war was growing. It made no sound. It left no trace, but it was coming. And when it arrived, the galaxy would learn. Why humanity had gone so quietly? They had gone quiet because they were getting ready. The Galactic Council met on a space station called Ascendancy. It floated above a dead planet, a reminder of what happened to species that disobeyed the Dominion. 47 different species sent representatives here. They discussed trade, laws, and the management of conquered worlds. Ambassador Hygiene walked through the halls with her hands folded in front of her. She wore simple clothes and kept her eyes down. Other aliens passed her without a second look. She was just a human after all. Barely worth noticing. This was exactly what she wanted. Hyjin had been a diplomat for 15 years before the invasion. She understood power. She understood how the strong viewed the weak. And she understood that being ignored was the greatest gift her enemies could give her. Today was the quarterly report on Earth's occupation. She would stand before the council and tell them how grateful humanity was. She would praise their wisdom. She would thank them for their guidance. And while she spoke, her contact lens would record every face, every security guard, every door code she could see. The council chamber was huge. Representatives sat in floating seats arranged in a circle. In the center, a platform rose from the floor. This was where speakers stood. This was where Hyjin would perform. A creature called Velthos announced her. He was a Kreth, a species that looked like a pile of wet flesh with too many mouths. The Kreth were known for their cruelty and their laughter. They found suffering funny. The human representative will now give the compliance report, Velthos said. His voice bubbled like water. Hyjin stepped onto the platform. She bowed deeply. Honored members of the council, she began. I bring news from Earth. Humanity remains grateful for the Dominion's guidance. We have much to learn from our enlightened overseers. The council members relaxed. Some stopped paying attention entirely. This was boring. Humans always said the same things. Velthus laughed his wet laugh. See how quickly the predators learn to kneel. Perhaps we should breed them as pets. Other council members joined his laughter. Hyjin continued her report with a steady voice. She described production numbers, population statistics, and compliance rates. Everything sounded perfect. Everything sounded exactly as the Dominion wanted. But as she spoke, she blinked in a careful pattern. Long, short, short, long. It was an old code that humans had used for centuries. Her contact lens transmitted the pattern to a satellite. The satellite sent it to Earth, and on Earth. Taiho read the message. Phase 2 begins tonight. 18 hours later. The first operation started. Doyon stood in the control room of an underwater base hidden in the Pacific Ocean. Above him, the water was dark and cold. The aliens never looked here. They thought the ocean was empty. They were wrong. All ships report ready, said his second-in-command, a woman named Nari. Doyon nodded. Launch. 20 small vessels rose from the ocean floor. They looked like fishing boats on the outside. Rusty metal, old paint, broken nets. But inside they carried technology that Yuna's team had built from stolen alien blueprints. Phase cloaking devices that made them invisible to sensors. Modified fusion cores that gave them the power of warships. The vessels spread across the Pacific. Each one had a target. Supply depots. Communication relays. Fuel stations. All the things that kept the occupation running at exactly 3:15 a.m. while the orbital defense grid was in maintenance mode. The attacks began. On an island in Indonesia, a supply depot exploded. The aliens there had no warning. One moment they were sleeping. The next moment, fire filled the sky. In the Philippines, a communication relay simply stopped working. Alien technicians found nothing wrong with it. The machines looked fine, but nothing they did could make it work again. They did not know that tiny devices had been planted inside, devices so small that no scanner could find them. In Australia, 3 high-ranking Dominion officers disappeared from their beds. No alarms, no signs of break-in. They were simply gone. Their guards heard nothing. Their cameras recorded nothing. By morning, 12 operations had succeeded. The fishing boats had returned to the ocean floor. The attackers had vanished like ghosts. Prefect Gorath received the reports in his office. His shell cracked slightly from the pressure of his anger. This was impossible. Humans were primitive. Humans were weak. How could they do this? He demanded answers. His subordinates had none. Find them, Gorath ordered. Search every city. Question every human. I want answers. The searches began. Soldiers broke into homes. They dragged humans into the streets. They asked questions and gave beatings. But no one talked. Not because they did not know anything. Many of them knew everything. But they stayed silent. The aliens did not understand this either. In their experience, pain made people talk. Enough pain made everyone talk. But humans just looked at them with quiet eyes and said nothing. Sujin watched one of these interrogations from her office window. A young man was being beaten by alien soldiers. His face was bloody. His arm was broken. But he did not make a sound. She recognized him. His name was Junho. He was a farmer from outside the city. She knew he had helped hide weapons in his fields. She knew he had names and locations in his head that could destroy the entire resistance. But Junho said nothing. He just looked at the sky and waited. The aliens eventually gave up. They threw him in a cell and moved to the next suspect. Junho would die there, alone and forgotten by his captors. But he would die knowing that his silence had saved thousands of lives. That night, a message spread through the resistance. A simple phrase passed from person to person. The harvest moon rises. It meant that Phase 2 was complete. It meant they were ready for the next step. Hyjin returned to Earth 2 weeks later. She brought gifts for Prefect Gorath. Fine wine, rare foods. She smiled and told him how sorry she was for the recent troubles. She assured him that most humans were loyal. Only a few criminals were causing problems. Gorath accepted her words. He wanted to believe her. It was easier than accepting the truth. "Find these criminals," he told her. "Help us end this disturbance." Course Prefect Hygiene said with a bow. "We want peace as much as you do." She left his office and walked into the sunlight. Her face showed nothing. But inside, she was counting. They had destroyed 15 supply depots. They had disabled 42 communication relays. They had captured or killed 23 high-ranking officers. And the aliens still did not understand what was happening. Across the ocean, Taiho received her report. He sat in his tunnel and read the numbers carefully. Then he looked at his team. "It is working," he said. "They are blind. They cannot see us." Minho spoke up. "How long do we continue like this?" Taiho smiled. It was a cold smile, the smile of a man who had been planning for years. "Until they have nothing left," he said. "We take everything from them, piece by piece. And they will never see it coming, because they are looking for an army. They are looking for a war they can understand. But we are not giving them that war." He stood up and looked at the faces around him. "We are giving them ghosts. And you cannot kill what you cannot see." The second phase was complete. But the war was just beginning. General Wujin had never fired a weapon in battle. He had never led troops into combat. He had never stood on a battlefield and faced an enemy army. Yet he was the most dangerous human in the galaxy. His office was a small room inside a cargo ship. The ship wandered between stars, pretending to carry goods from one planet to another. The aliens registered it as a refugee transport, full of displaced humans looking for work. They never bothered to search it carefully. Inside that small room, Wujin commanded what he called the doctrine of invisible war. "Traditional war is about destroying your enemy," he explained to his officers. "Invisible war is about making your enemy destroy himself. We do not fight them. We make them unable to fight." His strategy was simple but devastating. Attack nothing that looks important. Attack everything that makes important things work. A warship needs fuel. So Wujin's people contaminated fuel refineries across the outer rim. The fuel still looked normal. It still passed every test. But when ships used it, their engines slowly corroded. After a few months, the ship simply stopped working. An army needs communication. So Wujin's people planted tiny devices in communication satellites. The devices did not block messages. They changed them. Orders arrived late. Coordinates were slightly wrong. Reports contained errors. Officers blamed each other for mistakes that nobody actually made. A government needs food. So Wujin's people hacked agricultural systems on the Valoran homeworld. The crops grew perfectly. They looked beautiful. But they had no nutrition inside. The Valorans ate and ate, but they slowly grew weaker. None of these attacks were obvious. Each one looked like an accident, a malfunction, a mistake. The aliens investigated. They found nothing, because there was nothing to find. The humans had learned to leave no traces. Hannah was one of Wuzhan's best agents. She worked in a medical facility on a Dominion space station. The aliens there treated her kindly because she was an excellent nurse. She cared for sick soldiers. She comforted dying officers. She earned their trust completely. What they did not know was that Hannah was a biochemist. Before the invasion, she had studied viruses at a top university. Now she used that knowledge for a different purpose. She created a virus that did nothing harmful. It did not make people sick. It did not kill. It simply lived inside a body, invisible and harmless. But this virus had a special feature. It made anyone infected visible to certain scanners. Scanners that humans had built. Hannah introduced this virus into the medical supplies she used. Within months, it spread through the entire Dominion military. Officers carried it. Soldiers carried it. Even Prefect Goreth carried it. Now the humans could track every alien in the galaxy. They knew where their enemies were at all times. And the aliens had no idea. On the Kreth mining colony called Sigma 7, strange things began to happen. Machines broke down for no reason. Power systems failed and then restarted. Workers disappeared during shift changes and were found hours later in different parts of the facility, confused and unable to explain what had happened. The Kreth blamed sabotage. They blamed each other. They executed several of their own workers as traitors. But the problems continued. A human janitor named Bora watched these executions with a blank face. She swept the floors and cleaned the windows and said nothing. At night, she continued her work. A wire cut here. A chemical added there. Small things that caused big problems. The Kreth never suspected her. She was just a human. A quiet, obedient human who always smiled when they passed. Back on Earth, the resistance grew stronger every day. Yuna's team had built over 100 new ships in secret underwater factories. These ships were not big. They did not carry heavy weapons. But they were fast and invisible. Perfect for the kind of war humanity was fighting. Minho had mapped every weakness in the Dominion's defenses. He knew which stations had old security systems. He knew which officers took bribes. He knew which patrol routes had blind spots. This information flowed to resistance cells across the galaxy. Sujin continued her work in the Dominion Council. She was now one of Prefect Goreth's most trusted advisors. He told her things he told no one else. He shared his fears with her. He asked for her opinion on important decisions. She gave him advice that always sounded wise, but always led him in the wrong direction. Supreme Commander Yeltrix was the highest authority in the Valoran military. She had conquered 30 planets. She had crushed rebellions that lasted centuries. She was considered the greatest military mind in Dominion. History now, she was confused. Her report showed that the Dominion was strong. Factories were producing, ships were flying, soldiers were serving, but somehow nothing worked properly. Supplies arrived late or not at all. Orders were misunderstood. Officers made strange mistakes. She called for a fleet mobilization. She wanted to gather her forces and crush any remaining human resistance with overwhelming power. But when she reviewed her fleet roster, she found problems everywhere. 30% of her ship captains had resigned, disappeared, or died in accidents. Fuel reserves were lower than expected. Weapon stockpiles showed strange shortages. And her intelligence reports, the information she relied on to make decisions, seemed incomplete. She did not know that humans had rewritten those reports. She did not know that every piece of information she received had been carefully selected to show her a false picture. She was looking at a mirror, but the mirror showed her lies. Yeltrix called an emergency meeting of her admirals. She demanded explanations. Her admirals blamed each other. They blamed their subordinates. They blamed bad luck in computer errors and manufacturing defects. No one blamed the humans, because the humans were quiet. The humans were obedient. The humans had accepted defeat. In a hidden location, Wujin received a report from his agents. The Dominion's military effectiveness had dropped by 40%. Their supply chains were barely functioning. Their communication networks were full of errors. Their officers trusted no one, not even each other.
How much longer?
Asked one of his officers. Wujin looked at the star map on his wall. It showed the entire Dominion territory. It showed the locations of their fleets, their stations, their leaders. It showed everything. Soon, he said. When we strike, they must have nothing left to fight with. We are almost there. He thought about the aliens who had invaded his home. They had expected humans to fight with anger and violence. They had prepared for battlefields and explosions. Instead, they faced something they could not understand. They faced patience. They faced planning. They faced a species that could wait for years, even decades, to achieve victory. The Valorans had conquered many worlds, but they had never fought a war like this. They did not even know they were fighting, and by the time they understood, it would be too late. Wujin looked at his officers. These were not soldiers in the traditional sense. They were engineers, scientists, hackers, spies. They fought with code and chemistry and careful lies. They were the most dangerous army the galaxy had ever seen. Continue the work, he said. We are invisible. Let us stay that way until the final moment. His officers nodded and returned to their tasks. The invisible war continued. And somewhere in the darkness of space, The Dominion slowly fell apart, piece by piece, without even knowing why. Prefect Gorath burst into the council chamber like a storm. His shell was cracked in 3 places. Burn marks covered his left side. His eyes, usually cold and empty, now burned with something the other council members had never seen. Fear. They are at war with us, he screamed. The humans. They have been at war since the day we landed. The council chamber fell silent. Representatives from 47 species stared at the wounded prefect. Some looked confused. Others looked annoyed at the interruption. A few looked amused. Velthus, the Kreth delegate, let out his bubbling laugh. The humans? At war? Prefect, have you lost your mind? Look at them. They bow when we pass. They thank us for conquering them. Listen to me. Gorath slammed evidence onto the central display. Images appeared. Intercepted messages. Decoded signals. Maps of sabotage operations. In a body. A human body found in the Valoran royal palace wearing the uniform of a palace guard. This human infiltrated our highest security, Gorath said. He was there for 2 years. 2 years? He walked past our supreme commander every day. We only found him because he died completing his mission. The council members leaned forward. This was unexpected, Gorath continued. Our fuel refineries are contaminated. Our communication networks are compromised. Our food supplies are failing. Our ships are breaking down. And it is all connected. It is all part of a plan. What plan? Asked a tall, silver creature from the Tuvax delegation. Before Gorath could answer, the main doors opened. Ambassador Hijen walked in with calm, measured steps. She wore the same simple clothes as always. Her hands were folded in front of her. Her face showed nothing, but something was different. The way she walked. The way she held her head. The council members noticed without understanding. Ah, the human representative, Velthus said. Perfect timing. Perhaps you can explain your prefect's wild claims? Hyjin stopped in the center of the chamber. She looked at Gorath. She looked at the evidence on the display. Then she looked at the council. Prefect Gorath is correct, she said. Her voice had changed. It was no longer soft and submissive. It was cold, hard, the voice of someone who had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. Humanity declared war on the Valoran Dominion exactly for years. 7 months and 16 days ago, she paused. Let the words settle. You simply failed to notice. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted. Guards reached for weapons. Gorath screamed for someone to arrest her. But Hyjin raised one hand, and the noise slowly died. Before you do anything foolish, she said, let me tell you what has happened while you were laughing at us. She touched the central display. New images appeared. This is the human fleet. 200 warships built in the trenches of Earth's oceans. You never found them because you never looked. You thought we had no technology? You thought we were primitive. Another image. This is our network of operatives. 50,000 humans spread across Dominion space. Engineers, doctors, translators, cleaners, servants. You trusted them because they smiled and bowed. They have been your enemies from the first day. Another image. This is a map of our sabotage operations. Every red dot is something we destroyed, corrupted, or disabled. Your fuel, your weapons, your food, your communications. We have reduced your military capacity by 40% without fighting a single battle. The council sat in stunned silence. Hyjin smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. But that is not why I am here today. I am here to deliver a message. She looked directly at Gorath. 18 hours ago, General Wujin's forces captured Supreme Commander Yeltrix. She is alive. She is unharmed. She is our prisoner. Gorath staggered backward. 12 hours ago, Admiral Taiho's fleet surrounded the Valoran homeworld. Your planetary defenses are offline. Your orbital stations are under our control. Your people are watching our ships fill their sky. Hyjin, let that sink in. Right now, at this very moment, a device created by Dr. Yuna is aimed at this station. It uses technology we took from your own research facilities. When activated, It will disable every piece of Valoran technology within the system. Your ships, your weapons, your life support. The delegate stood up. You would not dare. You would die too. Hajin looked at him with empty eyes. We have been dying for 4 years. Our people have been beaten, imprisoned, and killed. Our planet has been occupied. Our children have been told they are worthless. Do you think we fear death? We chose this war knowing we might not survive it. That is what you never understood about us. She walked slowly around the chamber, studied our history. You saw our wars, our violence, our anger. You've prepared for that version of humanity, but you missed something important. You missed our patience, our ability to plan, our willingness to wait for years, decades, generations if necessary. She stopped in front of Velthos. You called us predators? You were right. But we are not the kind of predator that roars and charges. We are the kind that waits in the tall grass, silent, invisible, patient, and when we strike, our prey never sees it coming. Velthus made a wet sound that might have been fear. Hyjin returned to the center of the chamber. You have a choice now. You can try to fight. You can call for reinforcements. You can refuse to surrender. But your Supreme Commander is already our prisoner. Your homeworld is already surrounded. Your military is already broken. She spread her hands. Or you can accept what has happened. You can surrender peacefully. You can release Earth and every other world you have conquered. You can pay for the damage you have caused. And you can live. This is impossible, Gorith whispered. You are just humans. We have ruled for 10,000 years. We have conquered species far more powerful than you. Ashin looked at him with something like pity.
Yes.
You have. And that is why you lost. You have become arrogant. You have become blind. You looked at us and saw what you expected to see. Weak creatures who would bow and obey. She stepped closer to him. You never asked yourself why we bowed so easily. You never wondered why we obeyed so completely. You thought you had broken us. But we were never broken. We were getting ready. She turned back to the council. I have said what I came to say. You have 1 hour to decide. Surrender peacefully or face the consequences. She began to walk toward the exit. He called the Tuvax delegate. Why are you telling us this? Why reveal yourselves now? You could have continued your invisible war. You could have destroyed us without ever showing your face. Hijin stopped at the door. She turned around one last time, because we are not like you. We do not want to rule the galaxy. We do not want to conquer species and make them bow. We want our home back. We want our freedom. We want peace. Her voice softened slightly. And we want you to understand. We want you to see what happened. We want you to know that the species you called weak, the species you laughed at, the species you tried to break, we were never your victims. From the very first day, we were your enemy. And we won. She walked out of the chamber. Behind her, the council dissolved into chaos. But it did not matter anymore. The war was over. The humans had won. And the galaxy would never look at them the same way again. The Valoran. Dominion surrendered 16 hours after Hijin's speech. They had no other choice. Their supreme commander was a prisoner. Their homeworld was surrounded. Their military was broken beyond repair. 10,000 years of conquest ended not with a great battle, but with a quiet signature on a document. The news spread across the galaxy like fire. On a dozen worlds, species that had been enslaved for centuries heard the impossible truth. The Dominion was defeated, not by a powerful empire, not by advanced technology, but by humans, the quiet. Obedient humans who bowed when soldiers passed. Rebellions began within days. The Kreth mining colonies collapsed first. Workers who had suffered for generations suddenly found the courage to fight. They did not have weapons or training, but they had seen what humans did with patience and planning. They learned from the example. The Torvax shipyards followed. Engineers sabotaged their own facilities. Ships that were supposed to reinforce Dominion positions never launched. Supply lines that had fed the Empire for millennia went dark. Everywhere, the same pattern emerged. Oppressed species looked at humanity and understood something new. You did not need a bigger army to win. You did not need better weapons. You needed patience. You needed unity. You needed the willingness to wait for the right moment. Human advisors appeared on world after world, not as conquerors, not as rulers, as teachers. They shared the doctrine of invisible war with anyone who wanted to learn. They helped build resistance networks. They trained saboteurs and spies. They gave hope to species that had forgotten what hope felt like. Within 1 year, the Valoran Dominion ceased to exist. Its coalition of 12 species broke apart. Each species returned to their own worlds, too weak and too distrustful to hold their empire together. The great power that had ruled the galaxy was gone. On Earth, the occupation monuments came down. Tejo stood in the center of Seoul and watched the last statue fall. It was a massive figure of Prefect Goroth, built in the first months of occupation. For 4 years it had loomed over the city, reminding humans of their defeat. Now it lay in pieces on the ground. Children climbed on the broken statue, laughing and playing. Their parents watched with tears in their eyes. These children had been born under alien rule. They had never known freedom. Now they would grow up in a different world. Yuna found Taiho in the crowd. She looked tired but satisfied. "The Galactic Assembly meets next week," she said. "They want you to speak." Taiho nodded. The Galactic Assembly was something new. It replaced the old Dominion Council. Representatives from 100 species would gather to discuss trade, laws, and peace. For the first time in galactic history, every species would have an equal voice. "What will you tell them?" Yuna asked. Tejo thought for a moment. "The truth. We could have ruled the galaxy. We had the ships, the weapons, the intelligence. We could have become the new Dominion. But that was never what we wanted." He looked at the children playing on the fallen statue. "We wanted to go home. We wanted to be free. And we wanted to show the galaxy that power does not come from conquest. It comes from standing together." The assembly met on the same space station where Hai-Jin had delivered her revelation. But the station looked different now. The Dominion symbols were gone. The halls that had once heard the laughter of conquerors now echoed with voices from 100 different worlds. Tejo stood before the assembly. He saw faces of every shape and color. Some species had been Dominion members. Others had been slaves. Some had suffered for centuries. Others had only known freedom for months. "We did not fight to become rulers," Taiho told them. "We fought because we had no other choice. And now that the fighting is over, we must decide what kind of galaxy we want to live in." He gestured to the representatives around him. "I see species that were enemies a year ago. I see species that conquered and species that were conquered. I see anger and pain and fear. These feelings are real. These feelings are valid." He paused. "But I also see something else. I see hope. I see the possibility of something better. And I see the chance to build a galaxy where no species needs to bow before another." He looked at his human colleagues. Yuna, Woojin, Minho, Sujin, Hannah Doyon, Hai-Jin, the architects of the invisible war, the people who had sacrificed everything for this moment. Humanity learned something during our years of silence. We learned that true strength is not in weapons or ships or armies. True strength is in unity, in patience, in the refusal to give up, even when giving up seems like the only option. He faced the assembly one final time. "We share this lesson freely, not as conquerors, not as rulers, as equals. Take what we learned. Use it to protect your people. Use it to build something better. And remember that the quietest voice in the room might be the most powerful." The assembly erupted in applause, but Taiho did not stay to receive praise. He had never wanted glory. He walked out of the chamber and found a window overlooking the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, his home. The planet that had been invaded and occupied and scarred, but also the planet that had refused to break. The planet that had taught the galaxy a new way to fight. Yuna joined him at the window. "Do you think they understood?" she asked. "Do you think they really learned?" Taiho watched the stars. Some of them did. Some of them will remember, and that is enough. Change does not happen overnight. It happens slowly, one person at a time, one generation at a time. He smiled, just like our war. On Earth, new cities rose from the ruins of occupation. Schools reopened. Hospitals healed the sick. Families reunited. The scars of war remained, but new life grew over them. In Seoul, a new statue was built. It was not a general or a politician or a hero. It was a simple figure of a woman with her finger pressed to her lips, the universal sign for silence. The plaque beneath read, "They expected us to scream." So we whispered, and the galaxy trembled. Visitors from across the galaxy came to see it. They stood before the statue and tried to understand. How had this small, quiet species defeated the greatest power in known space? How had they won without great battles or powerful weapons? The answer was carved into the base of the statue, visible to anyone who looked closely. 3 words in every language of the galaxy: patience, unity, hope. Years passed, decades, centuries. The galaxy changed in ways no one had predicted. Species that had been enemies became friends. Borders that had been walls became bridges. The old ways of conquest and domination faded into history, and everywhere the same saying spread. Parents told their children. Teachers told their students. Leaders told their people, beware the quiet ones. Beware the patient ones. Beware the ones who wait in silence. The humans never forgot their lesson. They remained watchful, ready to defend their home if needed. But they also remained hopeful, working to build a galaxy where no species would ever need to fight alone. They had gone quietly into the darkness of occupation. They had emerged as the light that showed others the way, and the galaxy would never forget what they had done. The silent war was over, but its legacy would last forever.